Well, good morning, YouTube. All right, guys, it is not morning at all. It is Sunday evening. We just got done with our Sunday dinner, and now Talon and I have come over to the shop. We just got back from Disney last week. In case any of you saw those videos up on Patreon, as soon as I get them to work properly. But I've been trying to help Talon with this project he's working on, and we are basically taking this old Chinese four-wheeler and converting it to electric drive. And so far, yeah, to a Chinese electric drive. So we've mounted a motor here, but not very well. We mounted the controller down here, built some trays, had to weld some brackets together. You know, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the build. You've got to go to Talon's channel to see that if you want, and that link will be in the description below. But what we realized is that we're having some trouble making the brackets, and there's a tool I've been wanting for a long, long time, and I just been putting it off, not wanting to spend the money, whatever. And so last week, we finally bit the bullet while we were here, frustrated with building this. So yeah, we ordered a plasma cutter. And, you know, originally I was going to buy one from Harbor Freight. But the thing is, on Amazon, you can buy them so much cheaper even than Harbor Freight. And they've all got really good reviews. I've watched a couple review videos on some of these. And so we finally found one that was a really good Black Friday sale. And we bought it. So check out what we got. So we went with the Yes Welder brand. We'll go ahead and unbox it here. It's a pretty spiffy looking machine. Now this thing is actually way smaller than we expected it to be online, but yeah, it is, man, technology. So I have used plasma cutters in the past, but it's been a long, long time. I used to work in a body shop back in the days in Orlando, Florida, working on heavy trucks and heavy equipment. And back then was the first exposure I'd ever had to a plasma cutter. And we're talking early 90s, early to mid 90s. And back then it was huge. I mean, the thing was the size of a welder. Of course, welders were huge back then too, but it had its own roll cart and all this other stuff. It was just massive. This thing doesn't weigh hardly anything, and it's pretty fancy. So this is a Yes Welder. I believe it's a 55 amp, like pro model. So yeah, we're gonna figure out how to use this thing and see if it makes our job easier making brackets. So we've been trying to use angle grinders to cut stuff, and yeah, it can be done, but it doesn't come out as nice, and it's just so much more work. All right, guys, so this is a dual voltage plasma cutter. So it comes with an adapter to go to 110, or you can use the plug on it here if you want to use it on 220. We've also got the torch lead that plugs into the machine and gives you your cutting tip. There's a little cutting guard right there to go on the tip. Air compressor fitting, tool, ground wire, and some Teflon instructions. And I guess a hose, which I'm assuming would go from the regulator. Well, I don't know exactly what the hose is for. Maybe we should read the instructions. All right, guys, assembly was relatively simple. Everything here was self-explanatory. They only fit in one place. Ground clamp. You've got the control feed. This is the air line and the arc tip, I guess. And then here, the red is the positive lead. We put the adapter on because we're going to be using it on the 110 circuit for now. And the only thing we modified was we took off the quick connect that went to the clear hose, and we actually installed the air fitting directly on there. So we'll just plug our air hose into that instead of messing with that. All right, so we have this piece of scrap metal set up here. I think it's, what, 3/16 looks like. And we're just gonna do a couple practice cuts on the scrap end that's kind of boogered up anyways and see how it does. We are hooking to the 110 because we don't have the proper outlet for the 220 on it just yet. And according to the instructions, with this thickness of metal, we don't need that much anyways. So now we're gonna do what we can to get it all set up and get the air pressure set right and do a test cut. All right, guys, getting ready for our test run to get everything hooked up. We're gonna make our very first cut with it now. Yeah. Maybe you pulled it too fast. Maybe we got to turn the amperage up a little bit. Maybe just got to move a little slower. I can see the torch going all the way through. That's a little bit of slaggy parts, but yeah, we'll get this thing tuned in just right in a moment.
Definitely a little bit better. Lost power though.
Yeah, we tripped the breaker. All right, so see, we're still having a little bit of trouble getting it to go all the way through. And turn the air pressure up. Ooh, we got a piece break off. Yeah, we just got to get the regulator set right. You see when it spits out this way, it means it's not going through. You're just pulling it too fast. Going too fast again. No, you're not. I can see it changing direction.
You think the breaker again?
Really? All right, guys, so we had to switch to a circuit with a stiffer breaker, but Talon's playing with it. He's trying to freehand some stuff.
Not easy.
Yeah, we sure wish we had a CNC burn table right now, but we're making it happen. Need a little notch there to fit a wire through.
Make a little bit.
So he already fabbed up these brackets here, and I just welded them into place. I gotta say I'm a little proud because that right there is probably one of the prettiest welds I've ever laid in my life.
Honestly, I think that'll work.
All right, guys, so Talon and I have got a little bit of time in using this Yes Welder plasma cutter. And although it wasn't quite as easy as I hoped it would be, tell you what, it sure is a whole lot better than using a cutoff wheel. So I figured I'd walk around it real quick, give you guys some of the specs on this thing. Now, like I said, we bought this off of Amazon, and it was one of the cheapest units we could find on Amazon. Normally is, don't quote me on this, but I'll put a link below or a screenshot here. Normally, I want to say it's around $249 or $299 or something like that. But with the Black Friday sale, I think we were somewhere around $150 or $170 is what we actually just a really, really good deal for a machine of this caliber. Now, this is obviously not like a major commercial grade, but for the money, I mean, it's done a pretty good job. It did take us a little bit of time to get it all set up, playing with air pressures, getting the voltage right. And it turns out the 20 amp breaker that's in here on the circuit we were on, it kept tripping the breaker, which is weird because it's only got a 15 amp plug. But I switched the breaker to a 30 amp breaker and we quit tripping the breaker, and I kept going back and double checking the wires because a lot of the wiring here is exposed so I can see it. We weren't getting hot or anything like that. It was just that breaker was tripping awfully easy. They're really old breakers too. Maybe they're just worn out and need to be replaced. That I don't know. But once we went to the 30 amp breaker on that 20 amp circuit, which I know was a no-no, but I knew that we weren't drawing more than the 20 amps. So it seemed to have worked a whole lot better. Then we had to play with the air pressures, getting it set up just right, getting the regulator on the air compressor turned down a little bit because we had it too high at first, and then playing with the air pressure at the unit itself. And eventually we got it where we were getting some pretty decent cuts. Again, we had to practice a little bit. You know, our travel speed, meant a lot. We were going a little bit too fast at first, and eventually we got that slowed down, and was getting some pretty decent cuts. Not super clean like I've seen in some other videos, but maybe we just need a better technique. Maybe we need a little bit of practice. I don't think it's a fault of the machine. I think it's just us getting our rhythm down and getting the power set up. Now, that was all on the 110. Remember, this is a dual voltage, so you can plug it into the 110 15 amp plug, or you can plug it into a 220 volt. And obviously 220 volt is going to be able to supply a lot more power, and it's probably going to work smoother and better and be able to cut through thicker materials. We haven't tested that yet because I don't have an outlet in the shop that will fit that. But we will change that. Now that we have the machine, we will put an outlet in that will handle the 220 plug on here. All right, so like I said, this is the Cut 55 DS Pro. What's pretty amazing about this is it only weighs 11.1 pounds. I mean, this thing weighs nothing. Now, I don't know if that's just the unit or if that's the unit and the cables. There is a 10-foot torch cord. Now, this machine is only 6.1 inches wide, 14.17 front to back, and 8.86, just shy of 9 in total height. Now, that is not counting the handle or this. That's just the box for the most part. And like I said before, the initial setup is pretty easy. Everything on the front of the welder just either screws on or twists on. On the back, we took off the push to connect fitting for that flexible hose, and we put the actual 1/4-inch air nipple in there so that we can just hook our air hose right to the end of it. That's what we think will work best for us. Now, with the unit powered on, you get a really cool display screen, and it gives you a lot of the information. So here it automatically knows it was plugged into 110 volt. The E5, that is because we don't have an airline hook to it right now. We are set on the 30 amp setting, but I can change that pretty quick and easy here. When you got the air pressure hooked up to it, I can adjust the air pressure back here and it will read out the PSI. Here we can adjust post flow. I can change that. We're at 5 seconds. I can go all the way up to 20 seconds. I think 5 seconds is more than sufficient. Now that post flow was when you're done with your cut and you let go of the trigger, the airflow will continue for about 5 seconds. And I assume that's just there really to cool the tip or cool your surface. Kind of a good safety item. I don't think the previous plasma cutter I used had that type of function, but again, that was back in the early to mid 90s. Technology's changed quite a bit. Although they're not on now, there's also some warning lights and stuff like that that will post up here if there is an issue. Here, the units of measurement, I guess wouldn't get to hook the air hose up, but I can change it from PSI to a more of a metric standard, which we're just gonna keep it on PSI. Pretty nice settings. Now, as I said, it detects voltage automatically, but when the green light comes on underneath the V, that means it's in an acceptable range and it's ready to start working. If there's something wrong and it doesn't find the proper voltage, that will turn amber to tell you not to continue until you fix the problem. There's also a cutting mode here. You see where it says 2T right up there? There's also a 4T that may pop up on there. I don't know exactly how that plays out just yet. We haven't figured it out, but yes, see, I can put it on 4T, but it automatically defaults to 2T when you turn it on. Okay, so this reads as the Yes Welder Cut 55 DS Pro is a non-high frequency starting machine. Blowback type start involves a rearward movement of the electrode within the torch and when forced by air pressure. Now, this is also a pilot arc, and what that means is you don't actually have to be against material to get it to start. So when there's air pressure on there and you actually pull the trigger, it'll start the arc at the tip, whether you're on a cutting surface or not. but it only works for about 5 seconds and then it turns itself off. Now, they also recommend not to do that very often unless necessary because it wears the tip more, which Talon and I didn't read that part last night. We kept playing with it going, oh, look at it. Anyway, yeah, so we'll try to minimize that in the future. So it's really hard to give you any kind of a long-term review on this at this point, but we're going to play with it more and we're going to figure out how to kind of master it. We're going to get a better power supply here so we can cut thicker materials, maybe even at a faster pace. What we were cutting last night was actually fairly thick, and maybe it was just too thick for the voltage setting that we were on. But I tell you what, it was still better than using a grinding wheel or a cutoff wheel and trying to make these cuts. It was just so much better. So right now we're absolutely thrilled with it, but keep checking in with us and we will bring you more reviews on this. Like I said, for the price, you can't beat it. It's way better than trying to cut through steel any other way. And this will also work on other metals, aluminum, brass, so on and so forth. We're super excited to have it as an addition to the shop. We're hoping that you guys are interested in seeing some of the fabrication stuff we're gonna do in the future. Remember, if you wanna see what Talon is doing with this four-wheeler that we're converting to electric, you gotta go to his channel and he'll have a video out on that pretty soon. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time I see you, keep those engines running and keep those plasma cutters cutting, right?